Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we are test driving the 2020 Ford Escape SEL. All new for 2020 and my first time driving it, so I'm going to show it to you inside and out. We're going to take it for a quick drive and I'm going to tell you what I really think. As I mentioned in the opening, the Ford Escape is all new for 2020 and will be rolling into 2021 with very few changes, at least in whole. And what we really have to look at here is the fact that the last generation Ford Escape was very stylistic, very charismatic. And well, what we have here is quite a departure from that. It's like Ford kind of said, you know what, all that character, all that style, all that pizzazz, get rid of all that and let's just make something that's going to appeal to the middle of the road audience. And I think that's what they've done here. This is definitely toned down quite a bit in its overall style. And honestly, it just sort of looks like something you might find at the parking lot once you get to the airport for your rental car. And I don't know if that's a backhanded compliment or if it's a compliment at all, but that's sort of how I see this, especially in this color, which I like to call old gold. This would definitely not look out of place sitting in a driveway out somewhere at Sun City. But as I digress, as we look at this, we have smoother lines than before, a little bit less in the way of artistic flair. Now this is an SEL, not fully loaded, but at $34,000, it's near fully loaded. 18-inch wheels on this, EcoBoost 2-liter engine as an option. As I sort of look at the overall style, I'm sort of feeling like at this price it should have a little bit more going on here. As we look at the back, theme continues. I will point out dual exhaust tips, real exhaust tips. I have to hand it to Ford for that. Some brands out there are doing fakes now. And there's actually a tow hitch on this one. This one has a towing capacity of 3,500 pounds, although I think more often than not you're going to see someone's personal mobility cart hanging off the back of this than you will a boat trailer. You do have LED taillights back there. Headlights on this one, surprisingly not LED. And when you look down at the fog lights on the lower fascia, also halogen. Not a lot of LED going on here. Overall, in the exterior design, I really think Ford could have spent a little bit more money and really set the designers to work on making this a little bit more competitive with a lot of what's out there. The interior of the Ford Escape is very much like the exterior, dramatically toned down from the last generation. Last generation had a lot of character, a lot of design appeal, and as I sit in this interior, it just feels dumbed down compared to the last generation. There's a lot less design element, there's a lot less material quality, and it just seems like it's decontented. As I look around, there's a lot of hard plastic around me. This almond colored plastic, it's like a computer. In fact, a friend of mine was sitting in here and he looked around and he said, you know, this is like sitting in a hospital room with all the hospital equipment. Yeah, it's just very antiseptic, and even the trim isn't very much to speak of, just sort of a satin metallic silver. That's it. At $34,000 in a nearly fully loaded Escape, frankly, this looks like the base model. These seats, also very disappointing. They look like they should be very comfortable. They look like nice, aggressive, highly bolstered seats, but when you sit here, you're sitting on them. They're very spongy, they're very unsupportive. It's almost like an overinflated air mattress, and even all the adjustments that I've made, I've not been able to at all in any time this week feel like I'm sitting in these seats and they're holding me. And the material of the seats is vinyl, it's not leather. We're in an SEL, one down from the top trim grade, and we have vinyl seats. They have a fancy marketing name for it, but I've long forgotten it. All I know is they look like vinyl and they feel like vinyl, and like Toyota has what they call Softex, looks like leather, feels like leather, almost mistakable for leather, but it's vinyl. So I think Ford could do better on that as well. The controls, the steering wheel in this vehicle actually has paddle shifters, very impressed with that. Switches on the steering wheel handle most of the menu and functions. They do very well. Instrument cluster that I look forward to, 2 dials, one very small digital screen in the center, not really color, doesn't have a lot of detail to it. A lot of the competitors out there have full digital screens at this price level. Here again, I'm feeling like I'm in a base level car. The center console, very basic. It is well laid out in a practical sense. There's a nice spot down here for my phone, and no wireless charger though at this price. Cup holders are off to the side. One of the things I really don't like is the rotary dial shifter. Never liked them. I prefer a regular shift lever. It's a lot more intuitive. Here you have to twist and look, and it doesn't always work the way you think it will. At least when I open this, there's plenty of storage in here, enough for about 6 or 7 water bottles. Very well done, and there are plenty of power ports, both down in the bin and down inside the center console. At least with the expense of this trim grade, I do have a few niceties, such as the panoramic roof above me. Nice big glass roof, and it does open. There are heated seats, although not heated and ventilated like some of the competitors offer at this price. The rear seat really sort of carries on the theme of sitting in the front seat, only it's worse. And I have to say, this is actually the worst rear passenger compartment I think I've sat in terms of comfort in this class. The Honda, the Toyota, the Nissan, Hyundai, Kia, they all offer a better seating position, a more comfortable seat. And to wit, what I'm talking about is the fact that this seat is very hard, it's very small. You see that it's just, I feel like it's for a child. And it does have a lot of adjustment. It's got a slide adjustment and it has a back rake adjustment, but none of those things fix the fact that it's just awfully small and it feels like you're sitting in a low seating position. There is enough leg room here, there's plenty of headroom, but this is just an unnatural position for some reason. It just doesn't feel like you could sit back here for more than 10 or 15 minutes without wanting to switch places with somebody. I will say that they did make sure there's enough amenities back here. We do have vents for the air conditioning, very important here in Arizona, and there is a 12-volt outlet down at the bottom, but no USB ports back here. The seat does fold down in a 60-40 split, as you'd expect. There is a fold-down armrest with cup holders. Again, expected in this class. Everyone else has that. When this is folded, you have a nearly flat load floor, and kudos to Ford, they did give us a spare tire underneath that rear deck. Very important with an SUV that is sold to us on the adventuresome appeal, where we're going to go take it out in the middle of nowhere, probably way past our cell phone has bars. We don't want to have to call a tow truck just because we got a flat. When it comes to scoring this interior, I really sort of look as a benchmark to the Toyota RAV4, the Honda CR-V, and competitors like that. And they just do so much more with the interior. They offer more features, more design appeal, better materials across the board, better colors, and a lot more comfort. So scoring this interior, it comes in at 3 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is Ford's Sync 3, and in previous vehicles with the Sync 3 system, I've always rated it pretty high because it has good graphics, the menus work pretty well, and usually the sound is pretty decent. It has a good level of connectivity, a good level of features. But in this case, I don't know what they've done, if this is a new generation of Sync 3, but it's almost dumbed down, and I hate to use that term again, but this one is very slow to react to your touch. It's almost like the old Sync systems, where when you press a button, it takes a second or two for it to react and actually do what you say. It's like they've slowed down the computer. They put a cheaper computer in. I don't know what they've done, but it doesn't seem to be up to snuff with other Sync 3 systems that I've used. The audio quality, not that impressive. So this is an infotainment system that on the graphics looks pretty good, features somewhat decent, but not as full featured as some of the Sync 3 systems I've used out there. At least there is a volume knob and a tuning knob and hard controls for your most used things. And of course, you've got full connectivity. This infotainment system though comes in at 3.5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, let's go for a quick drive. Under the hood in this particular tester is the optional 2-liter turbocharged EcoBoost engine, 4-cylinder. This year it has 250 horsepower, 275 pound-feet of torque, and it's mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. And like most Fords these days, it comes standard with engine auto start stop, which I hate, but we have to be fair. Let's give it a drive. So the big question I always ask is, how does it go? Woo! It has a little bit of verve. Yep, 250 horsepower in this class is above average. Not all of the vehicles this competes against has an optional engine like this with a little bit more power. Most of them come standard with their engine, and that's that. So what do I think of this? Well, this is an engine that I've liked in most of the vehicles I've tested it in. That includes the Ford Focus, a lot of other Fords. It revs nicely, it drives well. It's a bit thirsty though. It's rated at 23 city, 31 highway, 26 combined. Well, 26 is a little bit optimistic. In my week with it, I actually achieved about 21. And when it comes to refinement, it's really good when you're driving on the road, but around town, this auto start-stop system is absolutely awful. It's completely annoying. I hate it. I hate it. You can turn it off, yes, but it comes on every time you start the car, and it sucks. It sucks. It's slow to react, and with this transmission, which, while this transmission does generally work while you're driving, when you're doing stop and go around town, tends to be a little bit jerky, a little bit less than refined. So I'd say we have a few hits here on refinement as well as efficiency. 21 mpg when it's rated at 26. It's thirsty. It's thirsty. Why not just have a V6 or a V8 and something if you're going to get that kind of mileage? That's my opinion. So that said, powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. Now, ride and handling, this is a vehicle that just sort of threads the needle between really exciting and, well, rental car. What I found about this chassis is the tuning as far as handling is sort of middle of the road. It's not too stiff, it's not too enthusiast oriented, it's not too soft and too wishy-washy. It has just enough feel, just enough stability to give you confidence, yet you're not going to want to go canyon carving in this thing. The thing I've most noticed this week is that when you start getting on rougher roads, it loses its composure quite a bit. Out on the highway tends to be mostly quiet. I do have pretty tall sidewalls on these tires, even though I have 18-inch wheels. So it manages to have a pretty quiet and solid, stable ride that's, well, middle of the road. So chassis comes in at 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, let's talk about value. This is the last metric I sort of put on my vehicles during our test drive. And when I look at this vehicle, I'm comparing it against the likes of the Toyota RAV4, the Nissan Rogue, Honda CR-V. All of these vehicles, even though some aren't nearly as new as this, offer so much more in the way of style, appeal, luxury, interior, character. You know, we're just at a place here where we're spending $34,000 and we've got a very middle-of-the-road design that, in my opinion, just doesn't stand out. So competitiveness takes a pretty big hit in our value judgments. So the total value score comes in at 3.5 stars. And when you put that in with everything else we've already talked about, we're at 3.5 stars for the review. I think bottom line here is, you know, the impression I get is that Ford just didn't really care that much. They didn't try that much, or maybe this is just the direction they're going as a car company. After all, this is a car company that brought us the Taurus for 2 decades, a car that was the darling of the rental fleets. And maybe that's where this is. Maybe this is what makes money for Ford. It's not what gets my money though. So 3.5 stars out of 5. And so if you like the video you just saw, I invite you to see others, see my latest one right there, or better yet, subscribe to my YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.